Good morning, guys. Today we're going to be reacting to Bellular News. Stop Killing Games just got very real. Before I get into this, I want to say I am a reaction channel. If y'all haven't figured that out already, I do my best to give a genuine reaction. For the most part, though, I follow people I'm for the most part agree with. And if I have disagreements here and there, I will pause the video and go over what I think and what I'm personally thinking to add my own take. I will try to be more diverse though in like my opinions, and if I can, if I see a point from the other side, I will mention my thoughts from a point from the other side, from a left leaning perspective. But if I don't have one like I think would justify their side, I'm not going to bring it up because I have no real deal of thoughts to to be able to justify it. But I very much appreciate it because I have recently got some feedback. Oh, all right, let's start this.
Across the internet, gamers have
My
been
ears!
celebrating. Loads of people believe that Stop Killing Games just defeated the biggest games industry lobby in the US, with them of course being the ESA. It's the sort of thing where the ESA...
Okay, I'm going to mention this. I've seen this all over Twitter. The California law, to the best of my knowledge, has passed for stop destroying games. And it'll go into effect next year on June 1st, 2027. If I remember right. Yes, June 1st. Does that mean like stuff like Diablo 4 and all that shit like has to have an end of life agreement, end of life plan? No, it doesn't. Any game, it does not have to have an end of life agreement, a plan, because the game was made and published before the law goes into place. Now, it could be argued, I'm going to say it could be, probably not, but could be argued, if it's still being sold by June 1st, 2027, that they have to have a end-of-life agreement. But it's a very weak case. I would say they'd be grandfathered in, and they don't have to. But in-game, like, published after June 1st, 2027, it's online service only, has to have an end-of-life agreement, end-of-life plan, which is either if the game's going to be shut down, you have to give 60-day notice. And if the plans are like your options are refund the customers for the money they spent on the game. That's the first option. Leave it in a playable offline state for the players. That's the second option. Or leave it in a state where servers can be made locally hosted by other players or other communities. That's your third option.
They are on the side of the games industry, which means they're often not on the side of us, the game's customers. But it's actually more than that, because this is seemingly the third time that the ESA have lost this bill. So, does that...
The ESA is supposed to be, like, if I'm not mistaken, they're supposed to be protecting the customers, which is, I don't, like, the customers and the companies. I think they probably are supposed to protect both. Maybe. I don't know. I had to re-look into it, but I'm going to say they're supposed to protect both sides. But it really feels like they were bought out. Like that AAA industry companies were paying them to shield for them. Like, hey, help us, help us, help us. We can't have this bill passed. We can't have this passed. If this bill passes, we have to have an offline mode, or we have to have a server mode at the end of the life. And you know why this is so bad for these AAA companies? Because it means the good games that are actually good online, that are online service only, when the end of life comes, they have to leave it open, which means that people that love that game are still going to play the game rather than move on to one of their other games. So they're less likely to move on to the next live service game. But that's really just a theory. That's my opinion, my thoughts. Like that this is like a motive of like, all right, this cash cow's about sucked dry. Let's move on to the next one. Close it down, move on to the next one. That's my thoughts and my opinion on that.
Does that mean that games are now saved from being deleted? Of course, not quite. So, despite what you may have heard, the fight is very much not over. The bill that Stop Killing Games just won at committee has actually already been changed, and the scrutiny is only going to get more intense. Today, though, I'm going to catch you up with the entire situation and the amendments that came in after the news initially broke.
Not good. I thought it was already in place. I thought it got passed like 14-4 or something like that. I can't remember. It was like some kind of vote. This is concerning news.
So, where are we and what's going on? Well, California's
This is only
State
in California,
Assembly is
though.
where we are, and what's going on is Assemblyman Chris Ward filed the Protect Our Games Act in February. Stop Killing Games advised in this act, and now they're backing it as an organization. Now, the bill is basically working its way towards becoming a law. Now, what would it do if it was a law? Well, it would apply to any digital game available for purchase on or after January 1st, 2027, so next year. Developers would have to give a 60-day warning before any service support ends for a game, and after that point, they would need to offer players one of three options. Those options are
This actually, from the wording, this could actually apply to existing games at the moment. From the wording, it could. It's like a little bit. I think it's a little broad on that, but it could potentially apply. What will apply is the 60-day notice. That is like going to be a deal, like a law probably required. Like, hey, if you're going to shut this down, you have to give 60-day notice. There's something else I'm going to say, but I completely forgot.
Version of the game that works without the developer's systems, a patch that will allow the existing game to keep working, or a full refund. Now, there's some things that are not in scope of this law, and that is free-to-play and subscription-based games.
Okay, yeah. Laws of this games that this won't apply to are games like Warframe. I'll block my camera. Warframe, WoW, which is World of Warcraft. Basically, games that like require a subscription or are free to play. And people are I had even a friend that says like they're concerned about this. It's like, oh, they're gonna move to subscription. I heavily doubt. I extremely doubt that they're gonna move to subscription and try to force subscription, because it's already been proven people don't like to pay for the subscription, which makes me feel that they'll move to free to play, which I could see them trying that. Do it like the mobile games market, where they heavily monetize it and treat it like a mobile game, like microtransactions left, right, and center, and it's free to play. Now we don't have to offer it into live services and all that. We can like microtransaction the fuck out of it. Again, this is my theory. I don't think they're going to do that either. I think they'll probably continue with their live service plan, but they will dislike it because it adds a bigger risk to them. The risk is if it flops, they have to refund everybody, or leave it in a playable state. Which means if it completely bombshells, it sucks. Their options are refund everybody or leave it in a playable state. Which means it has to be like playable. It means that if it's buggy, like too buggy at the point where it's unplayable, they have to fix it to the point where it's either playable or the customers are entitled to a refund. And that's where the risk comes in. Say like Marathon. Say it lasts maybe a year. Let's say it lives for a year, and they want to shut it down. But like say it released in 2027 on June 1st, and that from a year later they want to shut it down. Well, they have to leave it in a playable state, or give everybody a refund. Do you really think they're going to give everybody a refund? They will lose more money that way. The odds are they're going to put in like a peer-to-peer server kind of deal, like locally hosting your own servers, rather than give everybody a refund. Because the odds are they're not going to have that fucking money to give up. But that's my thoughts and opinion on that. And it's just fucked. This is something that should have been tackled years ago, but it's just now starting to get tackled. Consumers should have digital rights to stuff they purchase. If you disagree with me, you're welcome to disagree with me. But if purchasing is not owning, I am a firm believer that if purchasing is not owning, then pirating is not stealing. That is just the way it is. You want to charge me $80, $60, $70, $80 for a game? Well, I want to own that game. I want to be able to play it, and like I don't want you to be able to revoke my license to be able to play it. Like, why should you have that right? If say it's an online only game and you break the terms of service, yes, then I could see you having being revoked or restricted from online service to that game because you have broke the terms of service. You have either cheated or you are being verbally abusive to others. I can understand that, but I'm saying like people who just are like not even doing anything bad, not even breaking terms of service, can lose their license by either a mix-up or just a funny name that somebody finds offensive. Your license just revoked. There is no law that protects you. You're just fucked. Even now, even if with this California passing this law, you're not protected from that. That still can happen to you. You can lose access. But with this law going into effect, if it was like the end of once it goes into the end of life cycle, the end of the service, you technically probably have an argument when it hits end of service, you should be unbanned and be able to play the game again. Which then servers can ban you from their game, from their servers, if you break the terms of service. But yeah, that's a whole other complicated thing that we'll have to get into later if this all goes out very well. Because they're still fighting this in the UN, I believe. It's either UK or UN. United Nations or United Kingdoms. I can't remember which one it was.
Which I guess does make some sense, but any other server-dependent game would still have to provide, quote, ordinary use of core features that are, quote, consistent with reasonable expectations of a purchaser. And of course, what those reasonable expectations are, you know, open to interpretation.
Ah, shit. They're going into vagueness. Well, while they may go into vagueness, if a company does like a spit in your face with like the deal, this would backfire on the company because it would just destroy their reputation. People would stop buying their games. And people saying, oh no, they wouldn't. No, they fucking would. They have. They will and they have. And you can go look at the fucking charts of like companies that are like spit in the face of the players. Fucking go look at Ubisoft. They spit in the face of the players and they're fucking finding out. Yes, it's one-sided. Yes, I'm one-sided on that. I am one-sided on Ubisoft, the side of Ubisoft. I hate Ubisoft because that company is extremely anti-consumer and I am pro-consumer. I'm a consumer and I am pro-consumer. I want us to have consumer rights to stuff we purchase. Because I want you to understand this. Say you work a full-time job. You purchase a game for, say, let's just say, for argument's sake, because they're approaching 80 anyway. Let's say you purchase a game for $80, and you enjoy this game. You love this game. You play it for a whole when you on your days off, you play it. Your time off, you play it. You play it for a whole year, 2 years, and then they announce end of life. Not end of life like you get an end of life service. No, it's getting the sunset treatment. Means when it's done and it's over, it's gone. Poof, server gone. No offline, no nothing. Done. All that time you spent there will be erased. Your favorite game, gone. But let's say, for argument's sake, they make a sequel. Well, let's say the sequel sucks. Say you hate the sequel. Well, it's too bad. Your options are the sequel or don't play it at all. It's fucked up. We're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time. So why shouldn't we be able to enjoy our life and like enjoy the products we love to play? Why should we not own our product? Like, why? The product we purchased. It's like, oh, they made it. I'm like, yeah, and they want our money for it. You see what I'm saying? Like, they want us to pay for the product, and we want to be entertained and have access to the product we purchased. You get what I'm saying? I hope y'all get what I'm saying here, but we're going to resume this.
So, what I've just read.
Sorry if I'm a little harsh. I'm going to try to start being a little less harsh because this is something I get into, and it sends me off into a tangent.
Read out to you is how the bill read at committee, but I'll need you to hold that thought because, well, there's a vote that it just won. But the question is, what vote? Now, the group helping us keep this show on the road today is our sponsor, Rocket Money. And honestly, this one's painfully easy to understand, because so many of us have so many subscriptions that we either forget about, barely use, or we did.
I'm gonna be real with you. I actually probably should use Rocket Money because I have subscriptions I have lost track of. I will get money taken out. I'm like, I wonder what that's going towards. Now, if we're talking about a lot of money, no. We're talking about like $5. It'll take $5. I'm like, what was that for? And he'll say some obscure name. I'm like, what was that? And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm dead ass serious. I have no idea what that subscription is, where it's going. Do I care? Yes, I do care a little bit. But Rocket Money requires a membership, no doubt. And I don't really care to pay another membership to go find out if I got memberships elsewhere.
The classic, you sign up for the free trial because you think, I'll cancel that later. You might set a reminder in your phone, and somehow you forget. I do that all the time. Now, Rocket Money can help you get a handle on that in no time, right? Because it can securely identify recurring charges, show you what you're actually paying for, and then help you cancel unwanted subscriptions in just a few taps. They can also help you with your bills. Yes, you can actually upload one of your bills, and then Rocket Money can help you negotiate it down. And that's the exact sort of boring life admin thing that does save money, but gets pushed back forever because no one wakes up excited to phone their internet provider. Now, Rocket Money have helped cancel over $880 million of subscriptions, and users can save up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features.
Fuck,
so
I'm convinced.
If you want to spend less and save more, sounds pretty good to me.
I'm convinced. I'm gonna go check out Rocket Money because I've seen something there about car loans.
So stop mystery charges quietly gobbling up your bank account. Simply go to rocketmoney.com/bellular, scan the QR code on screen. You'll be able to join their millions and millions of members who are spending less and saving more. You can start for free and then unlock more features with premium. And that's at rocketmoney.com/bellular. And a big thanks to them for supporting the channel. Okay, here's the main thrust of the story and the major vote. But after that, there are amendments that really do impact how this law would even work. So, first things first though. On the 14th of May, the bill underwent the third committee stage in the Assembly. Now, that meant that it had already passed.
How many... Okay, this is all complicated. I'm not going about to read all this shit. But... how many does it have to pass? Wait, is this... One... I'm going to just count one way. 1, 2, 3... 4? Does it gotta pass like 5, or does it gotta like actually go through all of this? Because if it had to go through all this, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'm gonna say 7. They can veto this fucking law. That means they fucking just reject that son bitch. That's fucking shit.
The privacy and consumer protection as well as the judiciary reviews. So, it obviously didn't interfere with any existing laws or breach consumer rights. That's good stuff. Now, the latest review was the Appropriations Committee, which is a very American process of government where before any money is spent, it's got to be approved for that specific purpose. And obviously, if it doesn't get approved, then, well, you know, no money, obviously a problem. Now, the committee analyzed the bill and they worked out the fiscal impact of the bill. Now, this also includes whether the Department of Justice would have to hire staff to investigate and prosecute cases. So, I suppose much like how Charlie Kelly is a specialist in bird law, hey, if you're a gamer, you wanna do some legal stuff, you could become a game lawyer and you can fight this. But to be more serious, this stuff actually does cost money, and it's asking things like whether the trial costs would be super high. Of course, you're looking at about $1,000 an hour to operate a courtroom. Now, in both cases, they were found to be, quote, an unknown but potentially moderate amount. And that's good news for us. It basically means it's not enough for it to be a problem, and because of that, the committee passed it with amendments. So then, that seems like good news, but you may have remembered from the top of the video something about the ESA being involved and the ESA losing. let's cover that. To get a handle on this, we reached out to Stop Killing Games, and their Deputy Director of Community and Outreach, Pavel Zhalchak, I believe that's how you pronounce his surname. Well, according to him, the ESA is basically doing what they always do. So, the ESA, aka the Entertainment Software Association, is basically pulling the same moves in the US that the Video Games Europe group used in Europe. They are opposing AB 1921, which is the Protect Our Games Act, which can be shortened to the POG Act. That's a little factoid, not particularly relevant though. But what they are doing is they're using the same old tactics, right? So Pavel was responding to an ABC 10 segment on the bill's progress, where the ESA basically gave a statement after being asked for comment on it. And basically, they don't agree with the bill at all. They think that it mixes rights between ownership and licenses, which I'm sure many of you will have.
Well, here's the problem. I purchased the game digitally. There is no discount if I, because it's gonna be the same price if I purchased it physically. But the difference is, physically, I own the product. Digitally, they're saying I don't own the product. But I own the software to run the product. The ESA is just trying to run damage control and defense for like the big AAA companies that pay their bills. I'm sorry to say it, but it's just fucking true. Like, this is my opinion that they are corrupt.
Have your own thoughts about. They cite problems for developers. They suggested in the worst case examples that the bill would hit, well, various game creators disproportionately. Now, much of this was repeated in a thing called a floor alert, which is basically just a letter to lawmakers urging a no vote. Now, because Stop Killing Games are involved with this bill, they got hold of that. They made it public, and Stop Killing Games founder Ross Scott, well, went through it line by line, and it makes for lovely reading. But this type of thing is nothing new.
Nice.
The ESA produced this floor alert because the bill was almost certain to pass the Appropriations Committee, so what they were doing was just laying out the groundwork for how they would oppose it in the next stage. And that's because at every stage the ESA has been a registered opponent. So in that way, Stop Killing...
See, from what I'm getting, you would still be registered under a license, but your license is not revoked. When the game ends, your license is not revoked. If I'm reading that right, is what they're advocating for. That you keep your license to play the game because you purchased to play the game. But hey, we're going to just keep going.
Games' posts about how they've, quote, won against the ESA in California are correct. They've now won 3 times. They've won at each committee. And those committees are roughly 15 minutes of back and forth between legislators and, their witness each time. And pretty much every point the ESA made to the media was already on the table at these hearings. But what Stop Killing Games have basically done is publicize them. Now, that of course makes a lot of...
Okay, okay, I'm gonna back this up a bit.
Hearings, but what's...
Okay, bear with me because I'm dyslexic, so this might be a little hard for me to read. The Entertainment Software Association, ESA, representing the leading publishers and developers of interactive entertainment in the United States, must respectfully oppose AB 1921 Ward and respectfully ask for your no vote due to the significant legal and technical challenges the bill creates that will risk harming both consumers and the broader video game ecosystem. It would really cause no harm. It would actually help with consumer rights. Because the consumers have a right. Here's something else. AB 1921 is fundamentally flawed. The bill is based on a false premise that consumers own digital games with permanent access. That is not how software works. Games are licensed, not sold as unrestricted property. California already recognizes digital games as a license when they passed AB 2426 Irwin, which ensures that consumers understand they are acquiring a licensed digital content. Yes. If you want to continue to call it a license, sure, fine. But here's something I don't agree with. why do you have the right to revoke our license all at once because you don't want to continue the game? I honestly do believe that we should own our digital goods, like in a certain in a certain way. Saying like, let's say like this: I purchased the game. You got my money. Well, we agreed like, oh, this is a license. I'm like, okay, but there's no specific end time. Okay, that's not very nice. Also, we can also ban you and not follow our own terms of service at any time at our own discretion. I'm like, well, that sounds pretty shitty. And you have to accept these terms, and you got no choice. There's no workaround, because fuck you. It's it's not a very good analogy, but what I'm trying to say is, we should always have access to the games we purchased. We gave the money to pay for the license. We should be able to play it until our end of life. If you want to say, oh, it's like no longer live, then delist it, and the ones that purchased it continue to have it. Delist the game. We purchased the license when it was still around, so we still have the right to play it. And then once we start dying off, then the game will eventually just be no more. There will be no more servers because there'll be no more people that own the game anymore.
Stop Killing Games have basically done is publicize them. Now, that of course makes a lot of sense. They're an advocacy group. Pushing this kind of thing forward and getting it into the conversation is absolutely, well, kind of what they're supposed to do. But obviously when reporting a story like this, it's important to, go look at the original thing. So, we took a look at the footage, and really what you see is a fairly good-natured conversation. The bill's proponent, Chris Ward, repeatedly talks about wanting to work through the opposition's concerns. Like, as an example, he even suggests that he's actually okay with the idea of this being something with a bit of a time limit, so that perhaps a game that's a decade old might not be subject to the law. Really, what we see in the footage is what regular legislative action looks like. It's not the most exciting thing in the universe. It's just negotiation and scrutiny of legislation that ultimately, of course, could be worth many, many, many millions of dollars. Because, of course, there's many ways this could go that could end up being quite expensive for the people involved. Now, let's take more of a forward look in this. So, what we've just seen here was the final committee of the State Assembly. Now, from here, it then passes to the floor of the Assembly, which is basically where the whole House will vote on it and where other politicians can request amendments. And once that's done, then the whole process starts again with California's Senate. So, with the Senate, there will be committees and then a full vote. If it's amended in one house but not amended in the other, then there'll be a vote on reconciling the differences. So very much the process is not over. There could be months and months of scrutiny. But the thing is, it does actually move fast, and that's why it's now time to talk about an amendment. The amendment then. So, 4 days after the committee vote, the bill was actually amended. This happened on its second reading, which is the 18th of May.
What's that mean?
And what happened is the scope language changed. And this does quite matter. So, the bill that passed appropriations applied to any digital game available for purchase. Available for purchase being the operative. On or after January 1st, 2027. Now, the amended bill has changed that a little bit, where it applies to games, quote, first available for purchase or re-released for purchase on or after that date. And that is...
Okay, this bill will, with regard to digital games, first available for purchase.
is a real narrowing of scope. The initial committee version would have captured legacy games that just happened to be on sale after the deadline, but this new amended version essentially is only capturing new releases and intentional re-releases. It would mean
I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. It honestly sucks for older games that might not get the treatment they should get, but it means for the future games would be preserved for like future games.
That the existing back catalog stays out of the scope of this law, which, you know, if you're a big diehard and you really, really want a maximalist interpretation of this applied, this would really be quite a loss for your cause. But if you're more thinking about pragmatic progress, which I will admit I am, I think that this is probably a good thing in getting a realistic and workable bill passed. But I know a narrowing of scope could be disappointing, so how about we check in with, well, what Stop Killing Games themselves is pushing for. To orient ourselves on this, we can take a look at the global efforts and specifically on the EU Citizens Initiative. So, within the last year, Stop Killing Games' public position on the EU Citizens Initiative has actually been that they're not asking for any retroactive action. And here's the direct quote from them. Just to be clear, Stop Killing Games is not retroactive, even if we wanted it to be. It would apply mostly to future games if passed. So in one sense, then, the May...
See, I can understand that, and I'm all for that, because to ask to say it needs to apply to old games that like have already like had the end of life and all that, that shouldn't be the case. I think this is fine. It sucks that it can't include old games, but hey, when it comes to this, it's baby steps. Take what we can get. If this law gets passed, maybe we can get this passed through the entire, but to be like the whole entire United States have this law. Where like anything past like a certain date being sold, what live service or not, you can't shut it down without having some kind of end of life agreement. Whether that be a complete refund for purchasing the game, optional people hosting their own servers, like communities hosting their own servers, or just having an offline mode. This is like, I can agree with this and be fine with this.
15th Amendment moves the bill closer to that original framing. A game like, say, Anthem, already pulled from sale, was always going to escape.
I never got to try Anthem. It looked amazing, and I still wish I got to try Anthem, but unfortunately, the plug is pulled. It's gone. I don't think there's any legit way I could play it. I don't even think that pirates even have the game. I've heard rumors that some people do. I know the crew still, like, modders have, if you still have the, purchase crew and reinstall it, modders have a mod that will allow you to play the crew offline, the first crew, which is cool, but I really like to play with friends, so I can't do that. But hey, we're going to keep going.
This, and so too with any legacy game that just happens to be sitting in a digital storefront. The question now is what will count as a re-release, and I think that's where the next fight will likely be. Now remember, Stop Killing Games all kicked off whenever the crew became unplayable after its servers turned off. That scared Ubisoft, who announced an offline mode for the crew 2 in September 2024 and then shipped it in October 2025. It basically took them a year to get the thing running. Now, if a developer has a server-connected game that is, say, hitting the market on or after January 2nd, 2027, then they, of course, don't have a year to build that functionality. They would need to be thinking about this now, even if it wasn't a constraint that existed or that they thought may have existed whenever...
Well, I'm going to say, yes, that sucks for them. That's a little extra work. But guess what? I am the consumer. I wish to purchase your game, and I wish for it to be protected in case something you decide it's actually successful or it's fun, and then you decide to pull the plug, and then I'm left holding nothing, an empty bucket. While you got my money, I'm left holding an empty bucket. Why should it be like that? Like, why should I be left with nothing, and you took the servers offline? So I can no longer play the game. But yeah, I'm trying to make a point here. Like, I'm not trying to screw I'm not saying that the developer should be screwed, but the consumer shouldn't be screwed either. There should be something that's always been like a thing. This should have been something like this should have been done years ago, back in 2010. But it wasn't. Consumer rights are just it's slow. It is a slow process. Yeah, I mean, it probably should have been done before 2010, but hey, I think from what I remember, 2010 was really where the digital age really started getting a big ass push.
Development of their games started. Now, The Crew 2 also makes the re-release question quite concrete. Let me explain, right? It's not in scope today. The game was first sold in 2018, and it's kind of just been maintained since. But what if Ubisoft ships a Switch port of the game in, say, 2028? Maybe a definitive edition, maybe a paid expansion that sells separately. Well, currently the bill does not define what a re-release is. And that could end up being the next question. And it's decisions like what counts as a re-release that basically allows for an out-of-scope game to rather suddenly become...
I say a re-release should stand for it's re-released. A remake, a remaster, rework, or just re-releasing the game a second time onto a new console. Yeah, that should fucking... You know, these corpos will take advantage of the wordplay. Anything to nickel and dime and get around paying anything extra. Because fuck the consumer and fuck your rights.
Become an in-scope game, and for that to kind of just happen overnight, which will have obvious implications for the developers. And that's because once a game is in scope, the second question kicks in. And that question is, what does ordinary use actually mean? Because as I'm sure you can imagine, that's a bit of a woolly thing. Now, for this, the only definition that would matter is, of course, the law. So, ordinary use of core features, quote, consistent with reasonable expectations of a purchaser. That's what we have to go off, and how you interpret that is basically why lawyers get paid. So if the Crew 2's offline mode is missing multiplayer and some of its user-generated content features, well, does it still meet the, quote, reasonable expectations of someone who bought the game to play it online? Right now we don't know, but if that was to come back into scope for this law, then Ubisoft, well, they may have a case to answer and a fairly hefty penalty to pay if they can't win. Though there are, of course, the three things that the bill says a company would have to do should their game fall in scope. And, well, one of those is refunds. And Stop Killing Games are not pretending that the refund option is anything other than a worst-case scenario. I mean, we've seen it play out recently. Concord, for all of its faults, did give everyone refunds. And the only reason they couldn't give people a 60-day warning was that the game only lasted 14 days. So for a in-scope game that fails the, quote, reasonable expectation test, well, that refund would be the only legally available option, and my god, opening up refunds could be extremely expensive for some of these companies. Now again, this is not just about new games that get to design for compliance from the start, and it's not just AAA games. It would be every server-based game that launches or gets re-released in California from January 1st, 2027 onward. And, well, California is literally one of the world's largest economies. Stuff that goes down there truly does matter, and taken in concert with the stuff going on in the EU, you could certainly see, well, you could see the legal position here kind of.
I hate legal wording. It is so dog shit. I hate vague laws, because when they say it in a vague way, it leaves people to be fucked. Not just by the company, but just by the legal system. The company could get fucked, you could get fucked. And it could just simply be fixed by specific wording, but it's never, they never want to do specific wording, because then it can come back and bite them in the ass, because they're too specific. And then how they're going to justify their paycheck. Again, that's just me ranting a little bit. And an opinion.
Moving in a direction that the likes of the ESA and the companies that they represent, and well, just that they would not really be too pleased about. But of course, that's only if it passes and not really be.
Okay. Amazon, Atari, Bandai Namco, Capcom, Disney, Interactive Studio, Electronic Arts, Epic Games, Konami, I don't know that one. Mattel, I have never heard of that company. Microsoft, Netflix, Nintendo, Riot Games, Roblox, PlayStation, Square Enix, Take-Two. I'm going to say that's Take-Two. Yeah, it's Take-Two. Tencent, Ubisoft, Warner Bros. Games, Wizards of the Coast. I've heard of all of these companies except that one. I have no idea what Mattel is.
Too pleased about. But of course, that's only if it passes in its current form. And we've covered a lot here, but you're probably wondering, like, what is my takeaway from this video? What is the state of things? Well, don't worry, we've got a fairly clear roadmap of what's going to be following next, so let's go do that. Given that this is all legal, there are of course many steps left in the whole legislative process. Many points basically where the bill could still be altered to address the concerns of various different stakeholders, industry bodies, etc. And Ward himself has shown that he's open to that. He's open to these amendments. I think the May 18th amendment is kind of proof that he is, right? So even if you support the principles of this bill, I think a takeaway I'd have for you is that at this stage, you really should want the bill to be scrutinized as heavily as is possible. And I say that because even if California's legislator passes this, it's obviously not the end. Future lawsuits are almost guaranteed. And what that all means is the version that survives this current process is the version that will have been scrutinized, amended, and challenged, right? So yes, you might worry that this scrutiny might mean watering down aspects of the bill. And to be clear, yeah, there will be points where this almost certainly does get watered down. But a surviving law that has actually been scrutinized, that's been tested, that you can actually rely on, that is what Stop Killing Games are fighting for in the first place.
All right, that's respectful.
So on the one hand, we can't say that this is some big, overwhelming victory, or that the sort of maximalist position in Stop Killing Games is going to be going forward. It almost certainly won't be. But what we can see is that this is actually moving its way through the real, actual, serious legal processes that any serious bill has got to move through. It's being scrutinized, it's being amended,
6, it looks
but
like.
ultimately, a surviving law that you can actually rely on is a hell of a lot better than the whole thing being slapped down at the early stages because it was so maximalist that it was just unrealistic. And ultimately, a real law that is useful is what Stop Killing Games are fighting for in the first place. Now, obviously, the fact that we're not popping out champagne and having a big celebration, yeah, that could be a bit of a bummer. But you know what? I have a legal situation that's had a concrete goddamn result that is leading to a huge big corporation being completely humiliated. It's all about Subnautica too, and if you want...
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I like that. Now, he's a great guy. I'm going to leave a link down to his channel below, as well as to this video below in the description below, so if y'all want to check it out, please do. I also stream live on Twitch, and I hope y'all have a great day. If y'all got any more feedback you want to give me, hey, let me know.